All right.
All right, so welcome to week 2, strategic management. We have a lot going on already. As promised last week, this is a class that's heavily front loaded as opposed to most of your classes. So if some of you have been kind of jumping in the way you normally would, which is kind of a slow ramp up, you're probably starting to realize that you're feeling a bit overwhelmed. So I'm going to see what I can do today to help with those of you who've been already working on, say, the strategy game and discussions and everything, and those of you who are ramping up. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about strategy, and then we're going to jump into the strategy game, do a little debrief. I've been in your companies looking around, and so I'm going to give you some tips, and then I'm going to put you in groups, and I'm going to ask you guys to do some brainstorming about success or what you found or tips, because we're in the practice round. So anything that you talk about or give away does not relate to once we start the true competition. All of the data is wiped clean. So most students play around and try out different strategy ideas in the practice rounds. And so what they do in the practice round is sometimes a fake out for what they do in the real round. So anyway, we'll get to that. And if you have questions as we go along, please raise those questions, okay? And I can stay after if anybody needs to talk to me personally. We can put everybody else in the waiting room if there's a group of you or whatever. Okay, so last week we talked about strategy in general, right? And we even talked about the 5 primary strategic types of strategies. So for instance, low cost broad market, low cost focus market, differentiating yourself in a broad market, differentiating yourself in a focus market, or best value, kind of that in between strategy. So as you look forward to the homework that you have due this weekend in developing your strategy, you want to pick one of those. You want to land on one of those if it wasn't obvious. Okay, but where does this all come from? So we talked more about strategy itself. It comes from the vision and mission of your organization. So just to kind of clarify a little bit of difference, the vision statement is like this big, hairy, audacious goal. And it's something, what do we want to do? Like a big, big, big goal might be we want to find a cure for cancer or a certain type of cancer, or we want to find a viable vaccine for a new virus that's created a pandemic, right? That's a big goal. Now, we can translate that into shorter, one sentence, which is, if you, in your discussion forum, as you are looking at Ben and Jerry's and some of the other companies, you'll see that their overall goal has to do with values, right? So the mission statement is kind of makes it more practical. So your reason for existing, right? So what is our business? So what are we going to do to hopefully maybe someday get to that vision? Maybe someday we won't get to the vision, right? It could be something like stamp out world hunger or feed the world's hungry, right? Or create world peace. So, a big goal, a big vision like that needs something more practical. And so that's what you do in your organization, where it's for profit or not for profit or government or whatever. We need to find our raison d'etre, our reason for existing. So once we have our mission statement and we know what our business is, then we can begin formulating objectives and our strategy. The strategy is now the how. So the mission statement we know is our what. Then the strategy is, okay, how are we going to accomplish this mission, right? And so there's people sometimes use the terms interchangeably. and that's okay. But, a shared vision can sometimes cross boundaries for different subgroups within your organization. So you may have people who are, committed to one aspect of making things happen and coming at it different ways. But if they have a shared vision, so for instance, think about Oregon Tech or any higher education institution. So maybe a better example, since it's not relevant to all of you exactly, is one of my previous teaching jobs in university. And I worked with another faculty member who was polar opposite to me. So I'm all about, changing it up, adapting, continuous improvement, and he used to accuse me of always having my hair on fire, like it was never happening fast enough. And he, on the other hand, was very cautious. No reflection on accounting majors. He was a CPA, and he was very data focused. And every time we suggested change, he wanted to analyze it more, and almost to the point of analysis paralysis, right? So you can imagine that we were the two senior people at our location, how we went head to head a lot. But we quickly realized that we had the same overall vision, which was to create an educational experience for our students that ended up in them meeting the outcomes that we wanted for them, right? So it was all about doing what was right for the students. So as long as we stayed within that realm and reminded ourselves, then we could disagree on the how a little bit, and we could begin to compromise. So the vision is often abstract and can have an emotional component. So in terms of, the mission statement, it is important because hopefully your organization, the people within it are aware of it, right? So it should provide this basis by which we make our decisions and develop not only our strategies, but then our tactics and how to implement our strategy, which is kind of what you're doing in the business strategy game, right? A lot of what you're doing is very tactical. And hopefully, as you jump into the first competitive round, you will have your vision and mission in hand, and you will be able to make decisions based on that. Keep looking back to that. So we want to make sure that we're all on the same page, right? And so your mission statement can help unite the people within your organization and also your stakeholders, right? When it comes down to deciding where we're going to put our resources, your mission statement has a lot to do with that. Do we invest in the people? Do we invest in technology? Do we invest in research? Do we invest in the marketplace? What is our, what best serves our mission? And you're going to find you have a lot of decisions to make in the simulation. And so this becomes a way of helping you jump into a certain lane along that path, and so that you're not deviating and jumping around, because that could actually be a huge disaster. So it also creates this, helps create your culture, right? And climate for your organization. So again, if we go back to, these are all related. So if we are if our employees and our customers are super important and our employees are elevated to a very high level, we're going to put a lot of resources into them so that they can deliver value for our organization. So then our culture has to be very people-centric as well. So all of these things have to come together and be similar, right? And again, it will help as you establish your tactical objectives and move forward. So, okay, where does this all come from? We talked about, the vision and then the mission. So to find out more about a company's mission, we look at their values. And again, you're doing this in the discussion forum. So some of the early discussions posts, by the way, have been excellent, you guys. Well done. So what are a company's values? Those are those underlying intangible things that we can't really see. So think about their beliefs and their norms. Again, their culture should reflect their values, and those should all be in sync. And it should help them develop their vision and mission. So Patagonia is an excellent example of a company that has a fairly positive culture and value. I don't think TJ's on today, but here in the class, yeah, but he posted about Patagonia. And so I would like you guys to take a look at this short YouTube video, and then we'll talk about it. And then I'm going to offer a contrast. So if you go to Canvas and go to modules and go to week 2 and click on the class session videos, you will find this. It's only like 2+ minutes. I will go ahead and put this also in the chat. Okay. Maybe. Sorry for all the clicking. I'm sure you can hear all that. Okay, so there's the link. Oops, it's in here twice. Sorry about that. I got very excited in getting it to you. All right, when you guys are done, can you give me a thumbs up or something in the chat so I know we're good to go? Okay. All right. So if you're still watching it, go ahead and finish. But it looks like most of you have taken a look at it. So what are your thoughts when you look at this company? What do you think? And is this a place that you would maybe like to work?
I think it's a very heavily branded marketing scheme. Like their plan is to lifestyle branding.
Okay, yes, I would agree with that, Jacob. Do you think that their brand is for show, or do you think that it reflects their actual values?
I'd say it probably reflects their values, and then how the consumer interprets it is up to them. But the way it's written, it's probably highly reflecting the values of like outdoorsmanship.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think too, one way to know is to watch. Companies can tell us whatever they want to tell us. They can put on their websites whatever they want us to see or think of that company, but actions, are really where we can tell. So the expression "actions speak louder than words" is really important. So do their actions reflect those values? And I think in the video, the speaker is trying to relay the fact that they try to live those values. And if you're interested in learning more about Patagonia, some of you, they are a really excellent marketing company. In fact, they had ads a while back that would tell you not to buy a new piece of clothing if your current Patagonia clothing was still good, because they're all about the environment, right? And of course, what did that do? People were buying more. So it was a very effective ad, but it was kind of interesting. It had the opposite effect. All right, so a lot of you have probably heard of Enron, right? What do we think of when we think of Enron?
Massive fraud.
Yeah, they crashed the market.
Power outages.
Yeah, and people went to jail, right? So for those, yeah. For those of you who've been in my ethics class, you probably have seen this, but I actually have their manual on their code of ethics and conduct. It's small, but it's about 30 or 40 pages long. And these are their core values, and these were prominently displayed on my website. So this is an example of a company that had their values displayed, but their actions did not obviously mirror those, right?
Right.
Yeah. So crazy stuff. So I guess regarding anything in your experience, whether it's business or personal life or academics, you want to be a good consumer of information. So this is why we constantly talk about, where did the information come from? How credible is the information? Is the information repeating that somebody without credibility had to say? So, think for yourself and be your own investigator, right? Okay. All right, so I want to jump in. I want to give you guys some time to chat about the strategy game. All right, so I noticed some trends and I'm going to share them with you. I want you guys to know I'm trying not to be the taskmaster, but I'm really worried because some of you have fallen behind. And like I said, the heavy lifting was in week 1 and week 2, and we're almost done with week 2. So hopefully you'll have some time between now and tomorrow when the second practice game closes tomorrow night to really get in there and take advantage of that. The practice rounds are just as required as the regular competitive rounds, right? So when you're not participating, your grade's ticking down. So if that is an incentive, I don't know. But what I saw is that people definitely need to spend more time in the game. Now, that does not apply to all of you because, I mentioned that I go in and I look at your industry, I look at your company individually, I look at what reports you're downloading, what decisions you're making. It's really time consuming, but I think it's important. And there was a lot of inactivity. And I'm just going to share with you what previous classes have found, which is if you don't catch up now, it could be detrimental at week 3 or 4, and you can't recover. So, you might think, well, if I don't make decisions or I make very few decisions, I'll just write it out. I can still pass. Well, unfortunately, what's happening is the competitors around you are taking advantage of that, and they're going to eat your lunch, and you're not going to float along in the middle. They're going to bankrupt you. And so you really don't want a 0 score out of 150 points, right? The other thing is a lot of your other assignments are related to this. So like the one that's due this week, the final presentation is about your critique of your companies, the decisions you made, why you made those decisions, the competitors, what worked, what didn't work, what you learned from it. And if you haven't been engaged, then, there's a whole bunch of more points. So the simulation is the central factor in learning about strategy in this course. Okay, so enough said on that. So when you look at your score sheet, you'll see that several of you are tied, and those are ones who either didn't log in or logged in and didn't save any decisions. Okay.
Lori, there
Yeah.
is a lot of chats about the thing too. I don't know if you're seeing chats.
Oh, I'm not. So thank you for that.
You're commenting about that stuff too.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing here so we can maybe even see each other. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Thank you. I'm just going to take a second. Okay. Yes, Gannon, yes, you and one other person actually tied. So I don't know if you saw his thing. He saved his decision and he's still tied. But you're not tied with 4 others, if I remember right? You only tied with one other person. So some of you actually, you do have ties. But if you see several people tied, chances are that, that's the case. So I'm going to look here. So, what I'm talking about is the first round. I'm not talking about the second round that we're in right now. Okay, I'm talking about the very first round and the results. So, did any of you save it and it says you didn't save it? Okay, yeah, there you go. Okay. So a couple of things on that. Yes. And oh, I'm so glad you guys are talking. You should just talk too. Okay. So those of you who logged in and spent a lot of time on it, or a significant amount of time, ended up on one end or the other. So you either did really well or you're like at the bottom of the barrel. Okay. And that's cool. And you might think, well, what good did that do? The thing is, those of you who did really well, you're learning what might work and all that kind of thing. Remember that a number of people in your industry did not really participate. So don't assume that everything you did will work again. You have to keep an eye on, what your competitors are doing in the future. But also, those of you who are trying a bunch of things and pulling a bunch of levers, that's what's happening. This is why you are farther down on the bottom. Some of the things you're doing are good decisions, but they aren't going to show up. The results won't show up for a while. And so in a one round, it might look bad. But the other thing is you're trying stuff out and you're figuring out what's working, what's not working. And I think I may have said last week that quite often, the people who are at the bottom of the barrel in the practice rounds end up in the top at the end of the competition. So do not despair, right? Oh, no. So if you don't hit save, it won't save your results. So you want to keep saving as you go along. You can't just, walk away and then if it time runs out, it's not going to save that. So at least I don't think so, unless somebody else has had a different experience. Let me know.
So it's not supposed to save anything you changed unless you hit save?
Correct.
It doesn't just submit whatever the current state is?
No.
Okay, weird. All right.
I was worried that it was going to save it and submit it, so I wasn't saving stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Andrew, the thing is, people spend so much time, they'll flip a lever and then they'll look at potential results. And so, they're like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. But if it saved it, they can't remember where they were. So unless you hit save, it lets you keep going back to the status quo, back and forth.
If you just refresh the page, does it revert to the last decision? Is that how that works? Like if I wanted to mess around and see what it does, and I didn't remember all the original values, if I just closed the page and reopened it, it would reload to the last saved decision or the last state.
It
That happened
should.
to me earlier today, yes.
Okay.
those
Yeah.
to the last, so it will not save it. And what's deceptive, it says because you have to save all 10 pages. And so that's kind of deceptive because you have to save all of them.
Oh, you
So
do? You have to save each page individually?
no, but you go up in the top and you hit the saved and it says 10 pages. So it saves every single page.
Okay.
So you cannot save each page individually. At least I haven't figured out how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to save them all. So it's kind of confusing on that part too, because I just wanted to save one page. And
Oh, thinking it would save them all?
But say I was just one page. I just want to save one page and leave the others, but you can't. I have to go back in and
Mm-hmm.
I had to go back and click save, which saved every single page I'd done. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a bit confusing, but I'm gonna, what I want to do is jump in. I'm actually gonna I pulled up a demo that's available to instructors. So I'm going to pull that up and you should be able to see that now on the screen. Let me know if you cannot see the simulation on the screen, okay? So this is a pretend company. This has nothing to do with your work, okay? It's a demo, but it should look similar to what you see when you guys log in. Is that right? Okay. Right. And I'm not seeing the chat. So if there's stuff going on, will somebody let me know or read it out to me? Okay. So here when you go down, you'll see the scoreboard. Now, this is at the beginning where nobody's made a decision. So that's why everybody's exactly the same. We know that, right? Over here are your exchange rates. And these become important as the game goes on, as you're deciding where you're manufacturing and where you're shipping to in terms of your market, okay? So it shouldn't prevent you from shipping to a market which has exchange rating that might not be in your favor. It just means that you need to be aware of it and maybe balance that out, okay? Over here, it shows you, obviously the interest rates. It's important to have a decent credit rating, not only because if you do need a loan or you run out of money, the game automatically loans you money to keep you solvent and you'll pay whatever rate. So if you have a C credit rating, and it's a short-term loan, you're going to pay 9.5 or 10%, which is not a happy place to be, right? And already now you're behind. The other reason is your credit rating is part of your, the things that the game is looking at for your overall performance. Okay, it's one of the financials that's looked at. So let's go here to the decision reports and interrupt me, please, if you want to see something else. Okay. All right, so here we are, and here's our menu. Now, all the reports are not available here because it's a demo, okay? So I'm actually gonna go down here to branded production, okay? So up at the top, you see where we are, okay? And then here is, these are our changes from last year. So we did good, right? We went up a little bit. Well, I've entered some decisions. I don't know if I saved them or not. Okay. So here, let's say we're here and we're not really quite sure what we need to do. Okay, first thing you're going to do is think about, what is my strategy? Am I low cost? Am I high quality? Am I focused market? Am I luxury market? Who am I? And that should help you with your decisions, right? Then the other thing you can do is up here, see this help button? These video tutorials are only on these decisions you see right in front of you. So they range from 2 to 7 minutes. Most of them are around 3 minutes long, okay? And I watched them. I went back and watched the updated ones this morning from previous years. And I just played them a little faster speed and they're extremely helpful. The other thing is you can click on the help document. And are you seeing the help document?
Yep.
Thank you. So if you want to just, it gives you tips and it tells you, okay, if you do this, this might happen. If you do that, that might happen. So that is kind of an interesting thing, particularly if you're confused. So anyway, you don't have to keep reading. So if this is easier than going to, okay, we should be back at the decision page. That is a lot easier. And I found the videos were quicker and I could move through them and I could pause or go back to the part I wanted to get my answer on. And it really helped me focus in on this decision, right? And it's a reminder that if you change decisions here, you may have to change decisions in XYZ page. So that might be easier than having the humongous player's guide in front of you, trying to read through all of that. So I'll let you decide what works best for you, but particularly for those of you who are playing catch up and you're looking for, really good information, but that's a little bit faster and more accessible, I would highly recommend that. Okay. So I'm going to not go into what each of these means because those of you who've been in the game have already read about it and played with it. So I don't want to bore you with all of that. But the production is all of these are important. And then here is your distribution and warehouse. So for your branded shoes, right, that you're selling to your wholesalers, right, you're going to produce those in 2 facilities, North America and Asia Pacific. Now, if you want to add more, you can. You could add capacity. You could start a factory in one of the other places, but just remember that, and that's a little bit different place in the decision making. But remember, if you do that, it's a long-term decision. You're going to get locked into loans and you can't stop once you've committed. It's like stop building in the middle of building a factory, right? So it's both the benefits are long-term, but also the cost is long-term. So you got to make sure that it's a decision that you want to make. And it can be very, very beneficial. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying read about it before you do it. But here it tells us kind of where we are in terms of each market. And then we have to decide, for instance, in our warehouse, what are we going to keep in the warehouse? What are we going to take out of the warehouse? Are we going to clear our warehouse? And if you watch the tutorial, it will explain to you that there's a cost to keep shoes in inventory. But if you stock out because you've gotten rid of all of them, that's a problem too. Each year that those shoes age, their quality rating, which is their SQ, style and quality rating, goes down. And so, those are all things to think about and consider. Okay. So, I'm going to let you guys also share what you've learned in some breakouts here in a minute as well. So some of you have been wandering around and can share information. Some of you who got stuck on something or were perplexed by something, maybe somebody else can help. Because again, we're not competing yet, right? It's our last time before we actually compete. So now we also can sell shoes online. And so as a internet marketing, we have to make our marketer, we have to make our decisions here. And the things that are important here are the price, our advertising, search engine, and whether or not we're gonna have free shipping. Those are your three really big decisions that you need to make. And again, if you click here, it's going to give you information on all of those. And if you just want to look at one in particular, you can click on one of those hot links. But there's some good tips in here. See, it gives you the information, and then if you scroll down, it gives you some tips. I don't know if you've seen this. Has anybody used this?
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks,
Yeah, not
Jacob.
yet.
Not yet. So, okay. Any comments about that? Okay. It's a lot to absorb, right? So I'm going to give you some, every week I'm going to give you some more tips. Okay. So there's a lot to get your head wrapped around. So each week I'll try to introduce another tip. Okay. This is a really important one. The higher SQ rating you have, if having a higher SQ rating, all other things being equal, will deliver higher market share and sell more shoes. Okay. So something to think about. And that is in your manual. That's in your guide. When you're making your decisions, go back to your strategy. So again, the assignment in Canvas that's due this week is called Company Strategy. A couple of you have already turned it in, but look at, it has pretty detailed information on what you need to include. But by the way, be specific. It says that in the instructions, but don't be just general, like, we're going to be the cool shoes and everybody's going to want our shoes. I want to know, what is your exact strategy? What are your tactics? How are you going to price it? Where are you going to be in the market? Are you going to be low cost, high value, right? Geographic, how are you going to differentiate yourself and in terms of competition? Okay. I just showed you where the short video and help docs are that are focused exactly on that place where you are right now. So you don't have to go search for it. And personally, I find those really helpful. And I wanted to reiterate, any decisions you make on equipment are long-term decisions with impact on future rounds. Okay. So they can be as I mentioned, that goes for benefits and drawbacks. So make sure that it is a good part of your strategy and what you're doing. And so, Joanne, I don't know if you spent money on equipment or expansion or anything. Did you?
Yes, I did.
That's why because you pay for it in the week, or I'm sorry, in the year that you're making your decisions, but you don't benefit until the next year. So the cost up front that you pay now, and then the benefits start next year.
Got it.
Does all production, if I choose to make extra facilities, is all of that happen within a year? Or do any of them take multiple years?
Yeah, building a new facility takes multiple years. Yeah.
Okay.
And
But increasing production or buying new equipment takes place at the next year?
Increased production, yes. And things like overtime, yes. And the other one was
more equipment. Yeah, new equipment.
I'm not I'd have to go back and look at that, because there are some things you can do that are within the year and then some other things that are spread out over a few years.
Okay. So it varies. All right.
Yeah. So I'd have to look at that, but and I'm happy to do that. But I think if you look at the screen doc and just focus in on that part, it'll tell you right away. So
okay.
Yeah.
So if you
Good
sell
question.
if you sell equipment, will that take place the same year too, or is that like an immediate?
I just read that, Anne, and I want to say it said yes, but there was a caveat in there about the fact that you're selling the equipment at book value. So do you guys remember from accounting what book value means?
Mhm.
Book value.
That is the depreciated value, not the market value.
Thank you, Cole. That is absolutely correct. So it's not what any willing buyer is willing to pay. It is what is the depreciated value that's on your books.
Okay.
And so if you're depreciating over 5 years or 10 years, it may be worth a lot less than what you think.
So it may be worth just holding on to get your more.
It depends. I've had students do both. Again, it depends on your financial well-being. So at the end of week 1, I want to talk to you. We'll chat about financial indicators, and because you'll be able to see how your financial indicators change after 1 year, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about that last time once you've got a real round under your belt, or you're working in that round. And so that should be helpful. So those are my tips for this week. I went through the demo and the reports a little bit. So I would like to throw you guys in groups so you can chat among yourselves. And I'm going to pop in and out to see if you guys have questions. Also, you can send me a chat and I will get it if you're in a breakout room, or you can come back to the main room and come get me if you think I'm like off in La La Land. So I'm going to put 3 or 4 of you in a group. If the group was, okay, let me know if you want to combine with another group. So if a lot of you feel like, well, maybe I'll put you in bigger groups. Let me try this. Okay, I'm going to put you in groups of 4 or 5 because I think you'll have a better opportunity there to have some people who have been, looking around, and others who are still stumped. And don't feel badly if you're still confused, okay? Let's go. And I'm going to actually pause the recording.
Oh, right. It resets.
Turn it on.
Okay, we're recording now. All right, we're all back from the groups, and we are looking at Industry 3's site, but it's from the instructor center. So I probably see more than you guys do. But if you scroll down to the bottom, but on your screen, you'll see the same thing. You will see the list of companies, and they're in the order that they're ranked based on success. So here, company C had a really good showing in terms of the investor expectations and got bonus points. So they went over the 100 maximum. So did company J. And then, or I guess they didn't get bonus points. They just exceeded. Best in industry, they did well as well. So here is the game to date score. This final column is a running total of all of your years. Now, when we start the real competition, after the last practice round closes, these will all zero back to the original. And then it will be a cumulative score from that point forward. So you can see here in this way, Amani, they're ranked. And so you find your company and you know where you are. And over here is your overall score for the year and your game to date overall score. Okay, since we've only had, 1 round, they're pretty similar, right?
So if we gain the point, that means we did good?
Yes. Also, the 2 things you want to do is you want to look at your industry expectations, your investor expectations, and your best in industry score. And if you look at your guide, it will tell you what influences those 2 things. That 50% of your overall score is based on investor expectations and 50% is based on best in industry. Okay. And then this is just additional information here on credit rating, that kind of thing. So yours is similar, but because we were in the demo before, so you can kind of see what that looks like. What I want to do is go to reports. So your footwear industry report has a lot of good stuff in it. So don't skip over that. It's really important for your decision making. I want to go to the competitive intelligence because I forget who asked the last question, and I said I will go check it out. Oh, how you doing? No,
I did.
Okay. This is the competitive intelligence report, and at the top it shows you which region. So there are obviously 4 markets, and then which company you want to highlight. So whichever company you are, I can see all of them. You can only see, it'll hunt to yours, right? So yours is going to look a little bit different because I'm seeing everything. But you will see this is average. Let me move for the recording. Over here where it says industry average, So here's company A and here's the industry average, and it will tell you how you compare, right? So company A had a lower price than the industry average and spent less on search engine advertising, okay? So we're starting to see here how it varies. So this kind of tells us a little bit, doesn't it? So, and it's divided into the internet segment, the wholesale segment with retailers, and then the private label. So here is a fascinating place to go. This is one of my favorite places. So you can see here, this, let me scroll up a little bit. So this is looking at internet segment, and this is the wholesale segment, okay? So your y-axis is your price and your SQ rating, remember? Style and quality. The bottom is how many models you have, all right? Okay, so each company is represented here by a different color, which means each bubble has a different color. The bubbles, where they're placed on this graph, tells you about where they are on price and quality and how many models they have. And then the size of them tells you how much of the market share they own. So what does this tell us? Over here, H doesn't have too much going on, right? These groups are all on top of each other. So either they all have the same strategy and they're duking it out, or this could be a group that hadn't made any decisions for that year. So it's the same thing over here, right? But there are different sizes. So now here's another thing. If you hold your, if you click on a color, you'll see the actual stats there for that company in that market. So in this case, it's internet segment. Here for, let's look at company H. So, right. And then we can go over here to the wholesale market and notice, where's H? I don't even see them. Oh, here they are over here. So what does that tell us? Oh, maybe they're not so interested in the retail market. Maybe they're over, I don't know who H is in this industry. So, right? So this is how you can sleuth out where your competition is. Now, if you're here, if you're one of these companies, you got to figure something out. You got to bust out of this. You got to increase your market share. You got to compete, and you got to compete hard here, right? So oftentimes you will see that, I don't know how to get rid of that.
So your overall market share is obviously, you want that bigger, but you don't really want to compete with other people, ideally. So you mostly just
correct.
want to occupy a different section of the market. That's the goal here. That's what
Well,
we're
it's not
trying to
necessarily
decide on.
It's not necessarily the goal. It's okay early on, you'll find people clumping together, but it'll tell you, okay, so let me see, I have a note here I made. Let me see if I can find it quickly. When you figure out who, you're going to figure out there are usually one or two companies that will be kind of neck and neck with you. And those are the ones you want to watch. So when you're going to your reports, you're trying to figure out what's going on with them and what they're doing and where they're pricing and where they are. And pay close attention to those rather than having to worry about everybody else. So for instance, here, if I'm C, here it says to me, they're kind of middle of the road, right? But they're a little bit higher quality. E is down here. They're offering a lot of models, but at a lower price and lower quality. So E looks like they're going after a low cost broad market, right?
Right.
So, and that's fine. And by the way, if you're way up here in the top over here, and you could have a small bubble, but if you're charging a lot of money anywhere up here,
you're not going to have a very big market share.
Correct, but you could have a ton of money, right?
Right.
So I'm Jay in this,
okay.
I believe, if that's
Okay.
jump. That was not a good strategy. just full disclosure. I lost quite a bit of market share in the internet segment. And my predictions are saying that that's going to continue to shrink and shrink and shrink. And I believe market share is one of the things that we're being graded on for the investor expectations, correct?
It's not an actual delineated item, but market share affects everything. The more market share you have, so there's a saying, market share begets market share. The more you have, the more you get. The less you have, the harder it is to get it. So market share is determined by a number of things. How, first of all, who are you trying to appeal to, and are you giving them what they need and what they want? So if you're appealing to low cost, then you might just be beaten out by a few cents by another competitor or two. It doesn't mean it's not fixable. It doesn't mean you can't jump out of that, right? Or if you're in the quality market, maybe you just need to beef up those things that will improve the quality, and also things that might decrease the cost to produce those shoes. So does that make sense, Cole?
Yep.
Yeah.
So are we graded on how well we do in each market collectively? Should we be, let's say our company as a drive is to mostly go for the internet segment and primarily be massive online sales, and we vary up our production a lot, and we're not in the wholesale markets as much. Is that going to negatively impact us if we're doing well on the internet? Do we need to do well on both?
So
Okay.
think about that's a really good question, Andrew. So think about real companies, right? So if Netflix went from having videos in stores to just streaming or selling them on the internet, do we care? As an investor, do I care as long as their stock price is up, their profit margin's high, the return on equity is high? So we don't care how you make it. We want you to make the best choice for your company.
So one of the better choices might be to pivot really hard in the early game and rush into an area in one of the markets that no one else is.
If I
guess you'd have to be going that direction when you start, and then adjust if someone else comes after you.
So that's hard to answer because not all competitors are created equal. And especially early on, somebody may show up in the bubbles in a particular area of the graph and have no idea why they're there. They may have not done much. They may have gone in and just changed a few things.
Sure.
And then they kick in a year or two later and they change and they're somewhere else. So early on, I wouldn't change an entire strategy on this in year 1 or 2, right?
Okay.
If that helps.
That's more of an adjustment later on.
Yeah, I would say execute your strategy. Spend your time executing your strategy well, and you're going to shut them down anyway, even if they're right at your doorstep. If you're doing it right, if you're executing well, then you're going to sell more shoes and you're going to capture more market share, and they'll move out of your way or they'll die. Sorry.
Okay. I guess one final question then. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, it doesn't matter. It's all based on your strategy as to far as the direction you go in which markets. So if you wanted to go, let's say, the opposite end in 2 different markets, that's entirely feasible, or is that more difficult to do? Like if you're being the low cost provider in the Asia, and you're being the high quality, lower production in North America or something.
So I have seen it all over the map, and I would say it doesn't matter. The execution matters more than anything. So if you are selling on, the internet, you want to make sure that you are creating a workforce, that you're producing, that you've, besides internet, you have to know, okay, am I still selling to low cost, or am I selling to high pricing, high quality? Who's my market? And execute on that really, really well. then it doesn't matter. The other thing to think about is, so let's move, we're still looking at company A. Let's move to Asia and Africa. See how the map changed? So you can have different
Okay.
you can have different strategies in different regions. Now, the reason I chose those two are those are your manufacturing places.
Right.
So selling in those markets has less transportation costs, right?
Right. You don't have the import taxes. You don't have.
Right.
Okay.
But I've seen where people have forgotten, for instance, Latin America. And I've had students who moved in there in a huge way. First of all, they didn't do it on purpose. They just got there by default because they weren't selling in one geographic region and nobody was selling in Latin America. So their shoes just got sold over there. So then they went after it in a big way. Look at Cole, look at yours on your wholesale market in Latin America. Aren't you Jay? You said Jay, right? So
If that's jump, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it would be. So so although you've got all those people in your space, you have the biggest bubble. Okay. So what does that tell us about all of those folks in that same place? So Cole actually is charging more and has more quality. If you have more quality, you can charge more, which means more money, unless your shoes are expensive to make. So don't forget that part either. And in terms of the number of models, it looks like everybody here but G has the same number of models. So nobody changed anything. They're all 200, right?
Right.
So this is just, I love that. Can you tell? This is my favorite place to go, is a visual, and it helps me get my head wrapped around what's going on. And then when I go back, I usually go, okay, the instructions say you should go to the, the other footwear industry reports first. I go here first because I think this is more interesting, but that's my thing. And then I go, when I make decisions, now I have a better idea of what I'm doing, where I'm competing. You're not going to necessarily be the biggest bubble in your area or all by yourself in the first couple of rounds. And there's a lot of shifting. So if you are, don't rest on your laurels. That's another thing that students do. They start pulling ahead and they don't want to jeopardize it. So they get conservative, and the hungry competitors go after them and can overtake them. So you got to, it's running a company is a lot of work. And that's probably the biggest takeaway from this simulation. So I know you're worried about grading. The best thing that you guys can do for your grade is to engage in this. Spend time in here, review the reports, learn as much as you can, and reflect that on the reading that you're doing, and our discussions in class should start, and the videos that you're watching should start helping you with some of these decisions that you're making and understand how it's all integrated. And that's my goal, is for you to figure that out at the end and be able to articulate that. And if you can do that, you've done well. If you're just trying to game the system, and whether or not you're not really spending time looking at reports, and again, I don't mean to sound like big sister here, but I am reviewing your logins and whether or not you're accessing the reports. You can't be making good decisions if you're not accessing the reports. If you're making decisions that turn out well, it's all luck, and that doesn't translate into learning necessarily. So make sure, and I know you don't have to spend as much, if some of you will go in and you'll download the reports. So, I just need to know you're accessing and that you're spending some time in there. And we've seen that when we look at the decision making sites, that if you're only spending 8 minutes in there, there's no way you could have gone through all those decisions thoughtfully, gone back and fixed the ones that you impacted when you made another decision. It's just not possible. So, and it's not just time spent, but there appears to be a strong positive correlation with the amount of time you spend in the game and how well you do, to a point. Once you get above a certain point, then these are the people who want the, 101% always on their papers, and they won't settle for 98%. That's okay too. All right, so that was a lot. Sorry, I talked a lot. So questions. Oh, see, our bubbles changed again when we went to Europe, Africa. Here, company C is taking on coal, right? Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So don't forget when you're in here to change geographic areas as well as the internet wholesale market. So, and as Andrew was pointing out, some of you may go more whole hog into wholesale and some might go into internet. And then, we have that third little market where private label. And sometimes what happens here is people ignore it. And I've had companies excel because they ended up capturing the private label market because nobody wanted it. And then I've had it the other way around. So the decisions you make, you need to keep an eye on your competitors, on your marketplace to see what they're doing, right? And seize opportunities and respond to threats, just like you would in the real world. So this is why we call this report the competitive intelligence report. Okay. All right. Questions, other questions? Okay. Like I said, every week I'll do some general. I made a couple of notes for the whole group that I'm checking on. One is celebrities. There were some questions on celebrity endorsements. And then I'm going to call on the shout out bubbles that fly by way too fast. Anything else that you guys want me to look at or address, look up? Okay. All right.
I think I'm all right.
Sounds good. Thanks. Okay. I'm not going to have you guys watch this. This is a TED Talk during class. We might do it during class if we were face to face, but I've loaded it in the same place where, week 2 module under the videos and class session video, and the PowerPoints will be loaded there too. So this is a really good talk, and I think it's just so fascinating because it speaks to where we're headed as companies and organizations in this sort of new era of quick adaptation. And the presenter is a strategy guy, Martin Reeves, and he likens the successful companies to lessons from the organic world. So from biology, from, when you think about it, in Mother Nature, whether you're a plant or an animal, a human, whatever, if you're a living thing in Mother Nature, you adapt to stay alive and to thrive. And so he talks about the ingredients for that, and it's fascinating. So I think that for those of you who are moving into the marketplace for jobs, this is really, really important. And I highly recommend that you watch it. That's a good one. Okay, so I just have to end here. I just wanted to point out also, as you're going to read about this in your reading, is how do we know? In fact, Amani asked when it came to the game, how do I know I'm doing well, right? Well, how as a company do we know if we're doing well? Well, we started the class talking about our mission and then our objectives and our tactics for making good on those, right? So we need to measure that. And, we're a Polytechnic university. We believe in data. We believe in science. We believe in studying things. We believe in measuring things. And so we need to look at that and make sure that we are keeping track of how well we're doing. So in the real world, one tool we use is called the Balanced Scorecard. You may have heard of this in some of your other classes, maybe management, maybe marketing. So it's how we look at our outcomes based on our vision. So here's kind of a picture of how that might look. So in the center is your vision or mission and your strategy. So the what, who are we, what do we want to accomplish, and how are we going to get there, right? And then it has 4 main areas that you would measure, and you can see them on there. So obviously customer, whether that's a business or an end consumer, the government, whatever. And then, financial objectives, which are important. You're seeing that in the simulation. Another thing that's important, though, are those internal processes, right? So, and that's also in your simulation. How well, how efficient, and how effective are we in our internal processes in making good on our objectives and our strategy. And then that bottom one, learning and growth. This is about your organizational culture and people. Are they learning and adapting? Are you growing and developing as an organization, as a culture, as a people, as employees? So all of those things become part of the measures that you look at. And one way to do that is performance evaluation. So you embed these, that you come up with what are your financial objectives. Okay, so we want to grow. Okay, how are we going to measure that? New customers, increased revenue, right? But we don't want to just grow, we want to grow well. So we also want to take into consideration profit. So those may be the measures. Then we say targets. How much do we want to improve? What target do we want for our profit margin? What target do we want for our revenue % growth, right? And then the initiatives are what are we going to do to get there? And those are made for each area, and they become embedded at the top levels, like your senior levels, and then they filter down all the way through the organization. And so here is one that I devised for a healthcare company that I was administrator for. And I won't belabor it, but there are ways, even in a service industry, that you can create, what you want to do and create targets, and then how you're going to measure it, right? And then you embed that throughout all of your evaluations of employees, of departments. You base your bonuses on it, merit increases on it, and where resources going to be targeted, that sort of thing. Okay, so I feel like you guys have your heads full now, and you need to roll up your sleeves and jump in and just go to town on everything we talked about. So unfortunately, today is Thursday. Your practice round, the second and last practice round, closes tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. Okay. Then the data will sit there for 2 days for you to look at. You can download reports if you if you like what you did, or you learned something and you want to capture that to follow. That's all going to disappear. So if there's anything you want to keep, you need to print that out, like PDF or whatever. And then Sunday evening, I'm going to reset the data. So at 11:59 p.m., everything will revert back to the very beginning, and now we start for real. Okay. Also Sunday, you have a quiz due in the game. So you will go to the business strategy game, and the quiz should be there, and it's multiple choice. I'm giving you like 2 hours to do it, but it's hard. And I will tell you that it's based on the student guide, and oftentimes people do very poorly on it. So I don't want you to fret about doing really, really poorly, okay? It's important that you do it and that you learn from it. But on the other hand, it's only worth a small number of points in your overall grade in the class, right? So I hope I'm getting this right. Then you're going to have a second quiz in a week or two, and it's going to be similar, but you know, it's to reinforce that you're learning how to do the logistics of the game. Okay. And don't forget your discussion forum. It's already pumping along really well. And your first post should be by Friday for maximum points, but everything has to be done by Sunday night. It cannot be made up because we're all turning out the lights, closing that, and moving on to the next discussion. Whew. Okay. Questions, problems, curiosities? All right. So week 3, by the way, there was one more slide I didn't show. Week 3, you basically have another round of the simulation and the discussion forum. Oh, don't forget your company strategy that's due Sunday as well. That was on there too. Okay. All right. So that's all I have for you. You are welcome to peel off and get to work, or go grab something to eat and get rolling this evening, whatever your schedule is. And I will stay on. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. So thank you.